Amazon misses its Q3 numbers, but we don't want you to.
And we're going to break down some great tips on advertising and where you should be spending time. All this on this episode of Breakfast and Convos. Hi, I'm Liberty White, video marketing specialist.
And I'm T. Adeola, digital marketing expert.
And I just want you all to know that as much as we come each Tuesday, 11 a.m., and talk to you about all things marketing, digital, and tech, I was scrolling on social over the weekend and I saw the cutest photos of T, Mr. Wait, which way are you? T, T and Adeola with his daughter Gabby. T, talk to us about the father and daughter dance. That was like precious. I loved it.
Yeah. So that was our thing. We didn't get to do it last year, but that would have been the third one, but this is the third one we did in person. So
Okay.
fourth total, but we didn't get to go last year. And I dare say that this might be the last one because it was a little bit bittersweet because Gabby's in
Why?
the third grade now, and she's already 8 going on 30. And
Are they all? These kids are
I know
built
my
differently
daughter.
these days.
And I think it may not be cool to do in the fourth grade. Plus, she was at that age, and I'm not a woman, so I don't know, but I feel like it came on a little bit early because you know how like women get or young girls developing, they get more self-conscious and
Hmm.
they get a little bit more they judge each other by other girls more. And so I could tell she was doing that. Like before, mind you, this was 2 years ago because we couldn't go last year because of COVID. She was just, previously she was just running around, ripping, running, and being a fun little girl. And now she didn't have on heels, but she had little elevated like a wedge sort of shoe. And so she had a bit more makeup on this time. I could tell she was like judging her appearance by other girls. And mind you, the mamas go hard for the father daughters, and like it's not a game. Like you got girls in tiaras
Yes, we do.
and like the whole like it's serious business. Right. And so I could tell she was at kind of like, do you remember that campaign from a few years back, hashtag like a girl?
Yes,
So
yes.
I could tell she was at that like a girl moment. And for those who had not seen that amazing campaign, by always shout out to my former employer P&G. But hashtag like a girl, they asked a bunch of adults and some younger boy to do things like a girl. So throw like a girl, fight like a girl, that sort
Right.
of thing. And then they asked a bunch of girls to do the exact same thing. So 10-year-olds and down. And so the older people had sort of ingested the stereotypes of how girls do and how they throw like this and how they fight like this and all that good stuff. Whereas the girls, you ask an actual girl, okay, fight like a girl, and they throwing uppercuts, like trying to take heads off and like running as fast as they can. And
Right.
so the point was that, confidence plummets during puberty. Like it just absolutely goes off a cliff. And God willing, my daughter's not pubescent yet because she's 8, like she's in third grade, but I know I ain't got long yet. But I could tell that she was like approaching that stage because you know how girls, y'all look at other girls and you cut your eyes and then you look her up and down, like that whole
Who
sort
does
of thing.
that?
Exactly. So that whole sort of thing was going on. So it was bittersweet to me because it's like, oh, I can tell she's crusting to that point.
Right.
So,
And
but
and
for
there's and rightfully so. There's other things happening, and
mhm,
she's also very. I remember you saying of just her mind and super smart and super. So
mhm.
she's like, Daddy, I really don't have time for this. So enjoy those moments while you can, while
Yeah,
you can.
I
Yeah,
definitely savored it because I knew. Well, hope like I said, hopefully I get one more. Let me just get one more. But like I
got
know
some
my
wood here
daughter
for
and
you.
going into middle school, she definitely ain't gonna be trying to hang out with dad no more. So, but yeah, it was a great time. It was fun. We had a great time.
Well, what I love, and this is like all the way opposite of what I will share of what just that you are alert and aware of, her mindset and observing. And I had this incident yesterday where it was I had a consultation and my expectation was that because of the nature of I was going in for just like having some just my tooth was not in the best condition, and there's this whole idea that I had of I shared that, hey, this is what's been happening. I've been in a lot of pain, et cetera, et cetera. And then as we were going through, I just recognized just a lack of care and consideration. And the reason I thought, this would be good to bring up on today's show, because we are going into a time like in the holidays where they also just statistically saying this is also where depression gets heightened for a
Mhm.
lot of people. We are in Movember, where it is around men's health, while we're speaking specifically on men's health this month, but just mental health awareness, and just being kind to people. So as you are, and as marketers, sometimes like we come on, and yes, we understand that our audience are most likely either in business or in this space. So some of the jargon that they'll understand, but being understanding that everyone doesn't speak this language, and just for us to do service to our audience and just being kind and considerate. So that was just my thing. I was like, I think I want to dive into that a bit, because it was not the greatest experience, and that impacts
Mhm.
your marketing and your advertising and reviews and all that. So that was my spin.
Absolutely. And thank
Yeah.
you for surfacing that, because we definitely need to be cognizant of it. But something that everybody does understand, or at least I hope everybody understands, is money, right? So we
Right.
are briefly going to wrap up our coverage of the triopoly, or the triad, however you want to call it. I don't like the triad because it makes the ad seller sound like mob bosses. And so I like the triopoly because, and just to unpack the jargon that I just used, in terms of digital ads, the main players for a long time were Facebook and Google. They were the main digital ad sellers. So if you were going to see an ad online, it was most likely going to be served to you by either Facebook or Google. But more recently, Amazon has gotten into the game, and it's now the triopoly, because no triads around here. This isn't the Yakuza or anything like that, right? So, um, most recently, Amazon has really come to the fore as the third largest digital ad seller. And so we previously talked about the numbers, the Q3 numbers for Facebook and Google. And now we will be wrapping up and talking about Amazon, the third leg in the three-legged stool that is the triopoly. And they actually missed their Q3 numbers. And they missed it by a fair bit. Now, I'm not going to be, you all know how to read. I'm not going to read the headline to you, but folks are being really hard on Amazon. And honestly, I'm just not that bearish, because one, betting on Amazon is just not something anyone should ever do ever in life, because
You
they've
said
just
bet
proved
on Amazon or bet against
betting
Amazon?
against
That's
betting against Amazon is not something anyone should ever do. You should never bet against Amazon. But just to put these numbers in context, so Amazon made 110 billion with a B in Q3, but this was lower than expectations of 100. They missed that expectation. They were expecting 111.6. So yes, they missed it, but they just missed it by a few hundred million. And I know a few hundred million. It's a lot of money, but
right.
they didn't miss it by a whole lot. And just to unpack where these numbers come from, so 45% of Amazon's revenue came from selling things on Amazon, which is a 3% increase year over year. 22% came from third party sellers. So if you wanted to sell, if you had a product, a physical product, and you wanted to use Amazon as your marketplace online, which a lot of people do, 22% of the revenue came from that, which is a 19% growth year over year. 15% came from AWS, which is their cloud hosting service, which is a 39% growth year over year. 7.5% came from its subscription services, which is a 24% growth year over year. And then another 7.5% came from other, which is code for advertising. So their advertising business is other right now. It's not broken out into its own line item, but that's what it is, which is up 50% year over year. And then the last 4% came from its physical stores, which is a 13% growth year over year. And so when you're talking about something that big, you kind of run into what's called the law of large numbers, where you reach a size to where it's just physically not possible to grow at the rate that you've previously been growing, because you're already so big. But Amazon, just like the other members of the ad selling triopoly rather, they continue to eke out some really impressive growth, even though they're already massive. So I am not at all bearish on Amazon because historically, Amazon sort of picks a quarter to suck. Right, they sort of pick which quarter they're going to be soft, and then the next quarter they have this tendency to under promise and over deliver. Right, that's Amazon's way. They are always very conservative, and then they just knock it out the park. And so they moved Amazon Prime Day this year. It got moved out of Q3 where it usually is. It got moved into Q2. And so yeah. They're beating Amazon up in the article and whatnot, and I get where they're going because to whom much is given, much is expected. So Amazon is expected to hit its numbers. So, but again, you're splitting hairs of a few million because they were expected to do 111, they did 110. I mean, come on. So it's fine. Everything is fine. Nothing is on fire. But it is good to note that this has been the slowest sales growth in Amazon in almost 7 years from a percentage basis. But this is the fourth consecutive quarter, the fourth quarter in a row. So 1 year that Amazon has brought in over 100 billion with a B. And just for context, just because I know we throw around these numbers a lot, just so you can see just how big a billion is 1,000 million, right? So $1 million 1,000 times over. That's a billion, right? And Amazon brings in 100 of those, 100 billion every quarter for the last 4 quarters consecutively. So yeah, that with that context, I just can't get on the whole doom and gloom train with Amazon. Was it their best quarter ever? No, but this is Amazon we're
Right.
talking about. So betting against them is just it's ill advised.
And it's interesting because I know in a bit we're going to talk more into the live streaming realm, but it's interesting when you say that they moved Prime Day because I actually thought, okay, that was because they moved it up into the summer, and I was like, or summer fall.
Mhm.
And okay, when's the winter one? Because I was expecting, because I remember I think it was like October the 15th or something around that last year. But now with you just bringing context around, I was like, oh, you know what? They probably had ears on the ground, boots on the ground that knew all these other platforms were just getting ready to launch. And I'm like, let's stay way clear of that and, leave that all to, to the minions out there that are, trying to get into this space. But yes, don't bet against Amazon. And even though they didn't make their Q4, I also that's the hash like, so what do they have up their sleeve for 2022?
Right, right.
Just
Yeah, and speaking of Q4, I do think they're gonna have a historic Q4. Because last year was an historic Q4 for all three of the digital ad sellers. And the star, the undisputed star of Q4 is streaming. But before we get into that, Liberty, you have some case studies for us from
yes,
our
I
friends
do.
over at TikTok.
Yes. So just wanting to dive into this. So for many of you, you've heard us talking about, of course, whenever it's video, I'm like, yes, we're into this space. But there's TikTok, and then there's TikTok, and then Instagram Reels. And TikTok just being that platform where it started out with a lot of snackable content. Over the time, they've increased to their time of when you can watch a reel, which is watch a TikTok. But then Instagram, and really at the base of this, both platforms but bit off of Snapchat, really, if we want to give credit where credit is due. But now, when it comes to, and this is not just the creation of the content that we're getting into with this case study, but it's if you were to put an ad spend behind it, because that's what we want to talk to you
Mhm.
today about, like where you should be thinking about putting your money. And then this case study that is, oops, got to pull it up over on this side. So, what was really interesting about this case study and is that they were they put two completely exact same content, exact same copy, and they put these ads against putting them in reels, because if you've ever noticed that as you're like scrolling through now, you'll see more and more in your stream that there are reels that are actually ads. And so vice versa on TikTok, where they are looking at, okay, which was helped to convert more, like you actually got results. We're not, this is not, we do talk a lot about the creative side of content and advertising, but this is the actual getting down to the numbers. And when you look at it here, now this was a really small test because $50 is like pennies, if that, just also depending on the size of your organization. But they put it against $50 and the overall spend of roughly $1,000. Oh, sorry, the daily budget $50 and the overall ad spend of 1,000. And so everything, and this was actually, this case study was done by Creatopi and .com, and just as you'll see here, where everything just mirroring, so you make sure that all of your specs are the same or not, when you look at your results, that's where you'll see, oh, this performed better. But if they're not mirroring and they're not the exact same, then you can't really,
Mhm.
you kind of throw out that experiment. But anyhow, let's get down to the results. So according to this, and I want to be very clear, according to this according to this case study, according to this time period that they did it, because there are always things that can get into just the shift and the kind of results that you can get. But overall, they're saying that Instagram Reels, that they had a better ad spend with
Mhm.
Instagram Reels. And just looking at their cost per click, less than, like, pretty much TikTok, they're saying gave them half the results they got on Instagram for double the money, is what you're seeing here. We'll put this in the show notes. But what I find interesting, and I almost want to say, like, we should come back with other studies, and this is something I'll even challenge myself to come back with other studies, because conversely, I have heard from friends who are doing ads on TikTok, and when it comes to them actually converting, like they're uh, driving traffic, not only traffic, but product sales,
Mhm.
that they find better results on TikTok, which
Yeah.
have you heard that as well, T?
Yeah, and it's and to your point, it's all relative because you were very clear about highlighting for this particular for this,
Yes.
and it's not a large sample size, right? $1,000 over the course of a week. If you're only spending $50 a day, might like maybe 2 weeks, but $1,000 is not a huge sample size. But I mean, it kind of makes sense, the results, because Facebook is a more mature, not Facebook. Instagram is owned by Facebook, so it is
Right.
ultimately still Meta, Facebook, whatever you want to call it. But they're a more mature platform, and
Right.
even though TikTok has grown by leaps and bounds, it's still nowhere the size of IG. It's still several, a fraction of the size of IG, and so it will make sense that the older, more mature platform would, you know, perform better because they're more mature. And to your point, because the ads were identical to each other, what you were really testing was the audience. Right. That
Yeah.
was the variable being tested. It wasn't the ad copy, it wasn't the image, it wasn't the CTA, it wasn't any of that. No, it was the actual audience that was being tested. And that being said, your audience is going to, because I mean, let's be frank. Yes, as marketers, we tend to bucket people into cohorts, but there is a huge difference between a 25-year-old who might have just gotten out of grad school, doesn't have any kids, doesn't really have any obligations, and all that good stuff, between a 44-year-old who's mid-career, maybe got 3 babies, a mortgage, student loans. Like, there, in terms of life stages, there's a huge
Right.
difference there. And so when you're talking about your audience, that has to be taken into account. So yes, it also makes sense what you're saying, that okay, if I'm targeting someone who's in their mid 20s and they tend to skew TikTok, yes, that's going to be very different than if I'm targeting a 40-year-old who's approaching their first midlife crisis because they woke up and they find hair on their pillow, and so their hairline is starting to recede,
Or
and
just
now
getting
just
over
just for
part of that.
men's is starting to target them on YouTube, and they're like, what the hell is this? YouTube, why are you showing me just for men? That's because you salting up, player. That's
Right,
why you seeing
right.
just for men. So yeah, it all has to be taken into context.
And then even though with that, and so this specific case study, while it was, TikTok and Reels, that's where you really want to look at where you're spending your time and where your audience is spending their time, and where that being an indicator of where you should be looking at spending some ad spend, whether that be the Facebook, the Instagram, whether that be if you've got that business audience, is that your LinkedIn's, because we don't even hear people, even though we're here broadcasting on LinkedIn Live, we don't hear a lot of people talking about that ad spend and what, like, advertising even around LinkedIn. And then even looking at, should it be programmatic ads, should it be, which is, are those are your display where you can tell which where you want your ads to show up? Is it in search? Is it with Google Ads? Like, there are all those places, and we'll continue to have this discourse so that we can help you in just thinking through what your marketing and your advertising dollars, where that should be. Because hopefully we can all agree on this, is that, organic is dying. It's always going to be dying. Every time a new platform comes out, like, they're
Well, let's
good
let's be
for a
clear.
minute.
It's being killed. It was very intentional. Like it,
Right,
it didn't die of natural causes. Like, oh, I got cat. No, 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 no. Somebody took a gun to it, right?
right,
And so, because as we've said before, marketers ruin everything, and Facebook, they're a publicly traded company. They got to get that money somehow,
right.
and
Meta,
so
Meta
both
is
Facebook
a,
and
a
Google, they've
public.
intentionally like ratcheted down.
And the thing is that they're a business at the end of the day. Like, they let us come play so they could get all that data, that they could get
Hmm.
us to just be, feeding after the platform. And sure, you're able to start to grow, build audience and community. But at the end of the day, the plan was always to sell, always to,
Hmm.
whether that be from an advertising or tools or whatever that may be. That was always the game plan. So just being aware of that, and just speaking to some people that might be really now thinking, okay, now we're not seeing the results that we once did from an organic perspective, like our posts are not being seen. As much as you are frustrated, this is where it's like, okay, now what is this intentional ad spend that we need to do? Because even if you look back at, and just going back for one moment of yesteryear, newspapers, and yes, the news was the content, but it was always about selling those ads. It was always
Hmm.
about selling the front page, the back page, those hot spots. So it's about, for your business, your brand, figuring out what are those hot spots, because it might not be social. It might be in your email list. It might be, really spending the time to make sure your SEO is tight, so that from the perspective of search engines, because I remember seeing the statistic too of just traffic that you get to your website, like, that is the highest organic traffic that you will get,
Hmm.
because it's tied to the search engine. So I don't want to belabor this point, because we've got a few minutes, and I want to get into the YouTube and the Pinterest.
Indeed. Because speaking of hotspots, ain't nothing hotter right now than live streaming. Like everybody is jocking QVC style right
Live
now.
stream shopping.
QVC
Yes.
is the old school when it comes to live. They were doing live stream shopping before it was a thing, right? Because they were just, hey, call me now. I'm up here talking to this person. But now Pinterest, YouTube, they're all getting into the live stream shopping bandwagon. It's officially a trend. It's not even a bandwagon anymore. So at the end of last episode, we briefly brought this up, but we're going to circle back around to it because back on the 8th, so about a week ago, Pinterest launched Pinterest TV, which featured creators doing live stream on the platform in the evening from about 6 p.m. Eastern time, and you could watch the replay with the TV icon in the app on the top left hand side. And Friday culminated with a QVC style live shopping event. YouTube did something very, very similar, which is actually started yesterday. So if you go to youtube.com/shopping, you'll land here, which is the YouTube holiday stream, which is, yesterday, the 15th through the 22nd. And you see here all of the upcoming
So T,
shopping
just super quick,
streams.
if that tab, just replacing that tab because we see the Verge one.
Oh,
So
sorry
then
about that.
no worries, because
Okay.
I want to make sure. I was like, no, because we wanted
Yes,
to make
I
sure
thought
we
you could
showed
see.
you
See, my
what.
partner got my back. My partner
Yes,
got that. That's why you need a team, because I'm over here talking like you can see me, and Liberty's like we can't see. We
there it
can't
is.
see.
Because
Can you see
we were
now?
very intentional. Yes, we can see it. So yes, the holiday stream. So I love. So I geek out at live streaming. I geek out at especially shopping, because I think that really is the culmination of the content, the engagement, and then driving revenue. And as we see, like
Mhm.
YouTube has done their work. They're like, listen, you don't have to just watch one person. Here are all the events that are happening, and what's tied to it. I know what I especially like, and I see where they're going is we've already established YouTube is the number two search engine when people are going to look up reviews or how something works. They're going to YouTube. So why not integrate this so as you're watching a show, you have the ability to purchase whatever it is that they're talking about, like them tying that in. And because we're in this day and age where we're dual screen, right? So we're watching it, but then we're also researching whatever is on the screen on the show. So it's just a
And
win.
can I just say that the merchandising of this page is second to none. Like I
Yeah.
as a professional marketer, I just got to give it the chef's kiss, because of course you have the large scroll at the very top. And it's not scrolling right now just because I've been on this scene for a little bit, but you have the videos that scroll across, right, which is a best practice. And then the way they break it down into categories, so these are the upcoming streams, and then you have the recent live streams, so these are the ones that have already concluded. But so you have the upcoming, the recents, and then you have your featured gifts. Okay. And then you have creators to follow, so just in case you don't follow some of them, but you want to. And then you have it broken down by category. So we have for athletes, makeups must have, for chefs, to the go-to gadgets, gamers. Like, this page is merchandised exquisitely. It is exquisitely merchandised, and YouTube knows its viewers, because
Yes.
YouTube is the number one live streaming platform already. No, it's not Twitch, it's YouTube. And so the people who use YouTube are accustomed to this sort of thing. So they have the data, and they know what their viewers want, and which categories to put to the top, whom to put to the top. Dude Perfect, a little bit below the foe. You have to scroll, but chefs, gadgets, like, it's done superbly well. And so, hats off to YouTube for just, again, just chef's kiss.
Just doing it. And I gotta give it to Pinterest. Like we kind of at the end of the last episode, we were like, oh yeah, watch out for Pinterest. They're doing it because we come on Tuesdays, and they started on the 8th. But again, people go when you need inspiration, when you need ideas, people are going to Pinterest. So they understood. I'm gonna say this, they understood the assignment. That's what but they were like, okay, this is where we give an opportunity not only for the creators to continue to create in a different way, and by doing it live, and the engagement and the interactivity that they can have with their loyal viewers, but then there's a replay, because we know more people watch the replay than they actually watch live. And their ability to, and again, we'll put the link in where you'll see afterwards, there's like, here's all the products that they used. So
Mhm.
And I know a couple of people who are doing that live stream thing, so maybe we can have them coming in on an upcoming show doing the Amazon lives and really diving into that, because if you have a product, and especially if it's a consumer product, live streaming, like, don't sleep on this at all.
You
At all.
cannot afford to. And so,
Yes.
yeah, that has been this episode of Breakfast and Convos. I hope you got your daily dose of inspiration, some jargon breakdown, as well as some ideas to where you need to focus to keep your business running. And on behalf of Liberty White, my name is T. Adeola. I'm not even in behalf. I'm gonna shoot it back over to her, but I am T. Adeola.
And I am Liberty White. And be sure to hop on over for our mailing list. Join our mailing list where you'll get show notes and insider information on all things marketing, digital media, and tech. And we will see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.